Now to introduce our speaker, Chief Client Officer for Rain Group and expert in high performance sales, Andy Springer. Andy has worked with thousands of sales teams to drive long lasting sales improvement in SME, mid market, and enterprise companies over the last 18 years. He's known for consistently supporting sales leaders and remaining focused on the proven activities that drive real sales growth in their teams. Take it away, Andy.
Thank you very much, Katie. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening for those of you joining us from that part of the world, or if you're crazy enough like me to be joining in the morning, good morning to those of you joining in the Southern Hemisphere. Good to see quite a few of us came on right on time and then a few stragglers. So welcome to everyone. Let's jump straight into it. We've got a lot to cover today when it comes to overcoming our key sales challenges. We've got a lot of research to share with you. And then how do we take that research and make it tangible in a way that you can really take valuable things to help overcome some of those challenges as soon as you finish this webinar today. So let's discuss some of those key challenges that we're seeking to overcome here. For a lot of us, what we're seeing in this current day and age is we're seeing longer sales cycles, which means more work, it's longer to close. And as we know, nothing kills a deal like time. The more time that it takes for sales to close, the greater the risk that they may not close. We're also seeing a significant rise in loss, so losing the sale to no decision, meaning that buyers are delaying making a decision and in a lot of cases not moving forward. And now many sales leaders are reporting challenges with selling in an uncertain economy. And what does that uncertainty look like? Well, the thing that sales leaders tell me the most specifically is a lot of companies are holding on to their cash. They're not spending. They're just being really careful on what they spend on, and they're taking much longer time to make that decision to spend. And in some cases, as we see, holding on means they end up not making a decision at all. And then there's your job from a sales enablement perspective. And we engage with a lot of sales enablement experts. Sometimes I think they're geniuses across the world every single day. And it's a really big role. And it doesn't necessarily mean the size of the role is based on the size of the organization. We see it. We work with a lot of startups who have sales enablement teams that are critically important to their scaling efforts. And then those in mid-market, those in smaller companies that may have less resources to be able to draw on, and then right up to your enterprise companies. It is a big role. You have to drive all of these things that you can see on screen at the moment. Upskill your sellers, support your sellers, and making sure that you're there in case important opportunities need help in advancing. You've got to be developing your strategies, managing your enablement tools, providing coaching, tracking metrics, then not to mention recruiting and hiring talent. We're going to talk about that today. You've got to be seen consistently as supporting the improvement in win rate, improving productivity, all doing that, like most of you, I'm assuming, with limited budget and increasing pressures on your time, which is also limited. I'm probably getting a lot of nods out there for those involved in those activities. So the summary is this: buying has changed. More choice in less time. A lot of our clients and a lot of those who are on our research panel tell us that there's more choice and there's less time. Buyers are more knowledgeable and they're much more critical of sellers. And it's not just sellers being able to provide a brochurized version, if I can call it, in terms of what they actually sell in terms of products or services. It's the experience that sellers create that buyers are most critical of today. we'll deep dive on a bit of that and see what buyers are telling us in our research. There's more pressure to get results with less dollars. We're seeing more buyers on decision in decision roles, and what that means is essentially it's buying by committee, and that is growing. And then the more people that can influence the sale, the more complex the sale can get, particularly when it comes to making a decision. And it's getting much harder in terms of that. There's order takers. And if you're an order taker today and you're not as a seller bringing value, you're going to be in trouble real quick. And there's just no use for them. And particularly when we see information and the access and readiness to information that buyers have today. If you're just turning up and taking orders and you're not bringing value, you're not bringing insight, you're not bringing observations, you're not bringing something meaningful to the table, you will be quickly obsolete in terms of what you're doing. And also, if you look at the right-hand side of this, sales training and enablements change, and it's changing all the time. And it's about the diversity of skills required. It's about the ongoing and forever increasing importance of managers and the role that they play, particularly in the sellers development and the sales team development. You've got deal and budget pressure. We're seeing one of the first things to cut in a downturn or in uncertain times is obviously enablement budgets. That may not just be sales. Sales in some cases tends to be last because it's helping growth efforts or sustainment efforts in terms of revenue. But it's certainly something that's under pressure. You've got to make change durable. It's no longer good enough to create initiatives that are going to develop people. You've got to be able to prove an ROI case, and then you've got to be able to demonstrate that return on investment was achieved. So measuring what is required and then demonstrating results. So let's just see what's happening in your world. Katie's going to pop up a poll here. And which do you find most challenging of the things that we've discussed from a sales enablement perspective? So jump on there now. Let me know what you are thinking. We got quite a lot straight in there. And I can tell you now, generating qualified leads is certainly getting up there. Developing sales skills and recruiting look like the ones that are fighting it out for the second and third places. 10 seconds on that. I'm going to have a sip of water. Got a very healthy response rate here. If you haven't let us know your thoughts on this, I am very keen to know what's happening in your world. So please make sure you let us know. All right, just 3 more seconds on that, and we will end that poll. Thank you very much. A very, very good. We've got a lot of people willing to contribute. That's fantastic. Thank you very much for that. So what did you and your peers on our webinar today tell us? First of all, generating qualified leads is the most challenging across this group. Very closely followed by recruiting and hiring sales talent. I'm glad I scrolled and made sure I got that right. And then we have a dead tie for dealing with increased number of decision makers and developing sales skills. So what a great list of challenges, and really interesting to see. Generating qualified leads is the number one challenge that we're looking at. And I actually think we're going to be able to help quite a few of you in terms of how we might overcome that. We're going to have a look at recruiting as well. And then what we won't deep dive on is dealing with the increased number of decision makers, but certainly I'll give you some ways in which we might be able to help you at the end of the webinar today in terms of that. Thank you very much for sharing those challenges with us. So we asked more than 300, not sure if we shared that. Oh, we did. Sorry, that just popped back on my screen. Thank you very much. All right, we asked more than 300 sales enablement leaders about 17 different common challenges and 5 rows to the top. Interesting that there's quite a significant alignment between what we just heard about then and what you're facing now. Recruiting and hiring sales talent, selling in an uncertain economy, generating qualified sales leads, developing sales skills, and developing sales managers. The only one that wasn't in that top three was developing sales managers. So interesting that the alignment in terms of the challenges you're facing almost directly correlate to some of our latest research. So the top sales priorities are largely geared towards tackling the top challenges and revolve around the common themes of value, productivity, pipeline, and talent. So how do you bridge that gap? How do you overcome those challenges you're facing and achieve your priorities? So first of all, I'll say it's not easy to do. In fact, when we compare the results from our 2019 study to 2023, with the exception of selling in an uncertain economy, because we didn't ask it, the top challenges remain the same as they did in 2019. Recruiting and hiring strong sales talent is tough. Developing skills, both seller and sales manager, it takes time. It's an ongoing effort. And this is just as challenging today as it was pre-pandemic in 2019. And most sales training and skill development adventures fail to deliver long-term results. When it comes to the top priorities, 8 of the 10 remain the same, with 2 new items: building a robust pipeline and retaining top sales talent. Very few sales organizations have made strides in achieving their priorities, and most of which require skill development, which we know certainly is a top challenge. So let's have a look at 3 sales enablement strategies that we can employ. We're going to talk about those strategies and how you can focus on them in order to help achieve your priorities. Now, it's about executing well. And if you do that, you'll make the number one challenge, in particular recruiting top sales talent, much less important, because you'll be developing your own sales talent. So let's have a look at some of those strategies. The first one is to improve sales productivity. Now, I hope you got your fast fingers ready, because Katie is about to pop up another poll. Very keen to hear what this cohort's thinking is when it comes to that question. That statement: our sellers consistently focus on the right activities to drive the best results and execute energetically day in, day out. Wow, that's that word, energetically. I'd be interested to see what our thoughts are on that. So do you strongly agree, neither agree or disagree, or strongly disagree in terms of that when it comes to the sales organization within inside your company? Let us know your thoughts there. How are your sellers consistently focusing on the right activities to drive the best results and execute energetically day in, day out? I can tell you what I observe, but I'm more interested in what's happening in your organization. So let's give that just another 5 seconds. We have almost identical input rates on that poll. That's great. Lots of people sharing what's happening in their organization, which will help. Not just me, it will help the other people on this call to get a pulse check in terms of what's happening in some of these areas in the market at the moment. Let's end that poll now. Thank you very much, Katie. Let's see. So 33% agree with that statement, only 7% strongly agree. And so we're looking at over 50% either don't agree or they're kind of sitting on the fence, or they disagree. So interesting. There may be a strong group here, looking at 40% who are saying that the sellers that they have in their organization are focusing on the right activities, whilst the other half aren't. So let's explore this a little bit further. Thanks for doing that. I'm going to pull that off my screen right now. That's great. All right. So from our research, we found that 71% of companies do not believe their sellers manage their time and day effectively. So some of us who did agree with that may have the right ingredients in play in terms of heading towards top performance as a selling organization. But 71% said that they don't. And we found drastic differences when we were comparing top performers to the rest. So across 9 productivity behaviors studied, each was correlated to top performance. And here are just a few factors and just how much more likely top performers are to exhibit these behaviors. So top performers are 73% more likely to focus on their agenda and not react or get derailed by other people's agenda. They're 62% more likely to maximize the time they spend on activities that drive the best sales results. And they are 60% more likely to get the most done and produced in the time available to them. Equipping your team with the habits needed to optimize their time, stay focused on their priorities, and increase motivation is the best way to drive results, particularly in this challenging environment. One habit we know about, and something that we talk about almost every day with Inside Rain Group, and a lot of our top performing sales organizations that we have the privilege of working with, is about identifying your GIA or greatest impact activities and doing that first. Now, think about yourself or think about your peers. Let's say we lined up 100 sellers. How many would know on any given day the thing that they should be doing, that if they did it and did it consistently and did it well, it would have them blow away their goals and drive their success to new levels? They would outperform, in other words. So we ask this all the time, and we usually get around 50%, similar to the poll results. There's alignment there. So about 50%, sometimes higher, sometimes lower, but let's say it's about half. So let's say 50 people. Now, of those 50 people, how many actually do what they say they're going to be doing with the greatest energy and effort? So let's say of those 50 people, let's say another 50%. So we're now down to 25 people actually focusing on the one thing that could generate the greatest return consistently. Now, as a leader, either of yourself or of a team, we must get clear on this. What is our greatest impact activity? We need to calendar it, and then we need to commit to doing it. And so if you look in the calendars of a lot of top sales performers, and when I look in the calendars of a lot of top sales performers, I can see that they not only calendarize their greatest impact activities, but they protect them. And I think that's a really key point. They make sure that no one gets access to that time when they're executing on their greatest impact activities. And it is like daily prayers. It is something that they do religiously every single day, and they don't let others get in the way of them executing their greatest impact activities, and they make sure it's done first before any other activities, so that they're always executing on the most important. So now if we just look at what they're doing now, when we look at 5.7 versus 3.9 hours in a day, and when we look at a work week that represents 28.5 hours for the extremely productive versus just 19.5 hours for the rest, what we're seeing is that top performers realize an extra 1.8 hours a day because of how productive they are, just by focusing on their greatest impact activities. So by focusing on the important, you have a multiplier effect in terms of the extra hours that you are more productive in a day, which means that you can see that obviously correlates to improvement in performance. So they're not just productive, they're top performers as well, because they maximize their time. So if we look at what our survey response was in terms of this, respondents reported they could increase their investment time by 1.5 to 2.1 hours per day. And that's 46% more time on investment activities. So imagine if you're among the rest and you spend 9 additional hours per week on activities that get you outsized returns, and this was the time available to you right now. There is a real opportunity just by making a switch to focusing on greatest impact activities, calendaring them, supporting either yourself and or your team to execute them, that outsized returns are waiting for you. So imagine you did that across your team. If it's 10 people, that's 90 hours a week. 100 people, 900 hours a week. The implications are huge when you think in terms of leveraging this. All you need to do is teach them a few productivity strategies, and it can have a huge impact. So that is our first strategy for overcoming our sales challenges. The second one is to develop multi-skilled sellers. Now, fast fingers, jump back onto the poll. Thank you, Katie, for launching that. Tell us about the effectiveness of your sellers, particularly when it comes to leading a thorough and impressive, let's call it, needs discovery, showing buyers what's possible or how to solve a problem, listening to buyers, or making a clear return on investment case. What is happening in your organization? So we get a pulse check on what's happening across all the organizations represented on our call today. Tell us what is happening. What are you seeing in terms of seller effectiveness? 10 more seconds. Let's get that completion rate up. If you haven't shared what's happening, let us know. Click on that poll and let's get a really good understanding of what's happening in seller effectiveness. All right, just a few more seconds on that. Thank you very much for your input. We are up there, just a few less. All right, let's go. Thanks, Katie. Let's share those results. Showing buyers what's possible or how to solve a problem, 68%. Listening to buyers, 42%. So our sellers are effective at showing buyers what's possible. They're effective at listening more than they are leading a thorough needs discovery, and making a clear ROI case is perhaps one of the areas that they may not be as effective. All right, thank you very much for your input. That's really good for me to know, and obviously it adds value to those joining us on the webinar to see what's happening in other organizations. So these are the factors that most highly influence buyers' purchase decisions. So they are leading a thorough, impressive needs discovery, showing what's possible, listening, and making the ROI case, exactly as we said in our poll. Now, unfortunately, it's not simple. When we ask these same buyers to rate their experience with sellers in these areas, there's a huge disconnect which emerged from the data. As you can see, the gaps are massive. Sellers may not be performing as well as we think. Now, at the same time, we know it's a priority for leaders to improve sellers' ability to communicate value, increase business with existing accounts, build robust pipelines, improve sellers' ability in terms of selling ability and to drive new logos. They're the key things, and I'm sure all of you are aware of that and are living that reality right now. It's hard to do these things if the sellers don't have the skills. And it's not just one skill, it's a combination of skills. The problem is too many organizations focusing on developing one skill. They see research like this and say, we need to make stronger return on investment cases. And if not, we need to have our team consistently with a language, process, and approach to uncovering needs. And so we need to focus on needs discovery. We need our sellers listening more to what's happening in the market and opening their ears and speaking less. We need to develop listening skills among them. All of these are great. You can see it's actually the breadth and depth of skills that lead to top performance, not just one of these skills. And it's amazing if you look at that first one there. I remember a few years back, in spending a lot of time in selling organizations around the world and going in and observing their sellers, the most consistent thing I see then and I see now is ineffective needs discoveries. We don't really know our customers, and a lot of these things are showing up time and time again because we're not listening, we're not thinking about return on investment, and we're not really showing in the most effective way possible what it is that we can do to solve problems for our customers. And a lot of that is sellers have an internal focus. They're focusing much more on what their organization requires of them in order to get the reward that they're looking for in terms of defining success in their role. Top performers are not internally focused. They're consistently value focused. They're consistently customer focused. But these are a really good a really good understanding in terms of the key problems and the key gaps in terms of skill areas. And as I said, it's about the breadth and depth of skill. It's not about focusing on them as individual skills, thinking that that's going to solve the problem. So we define the best in this space as top performing sales organizations, and they figure this out. And we see this time and time again, and they work to develop skills systematically in a very systemized fashion. And an early step in the process is to build a sales competency model. You're seeing one on the screen at the moment. And this helps you understand the skills that your sellers need. So if you've defined the skills, knowledge, and attributes, you can define the content and format of training that's best suited to build those. So we use the top performing seller model, which is research validated. It identifies the capabilities and behaviors that separate top performing sellers from other sellers. There are a finite amount of things sellers need to do for that to happen. And at the center of the model is value. Sellers need to establish value in the minds of the buyer in every single engagement, in every single opportunity. We've also learned that sellers that deliver value themselves throughout the process of selling tend to win the most. So value isn't just in your product, service, solution offering. It's the way in which your sellers and selling team engage the buyer, which can tip it in their favor in terms of a positive decision. So everything is connected to value, and sellers then need to manage the sale or the opportunity process or sales process. And they commonly look like this. They need to do well with filling the pipe, discovering need or driving needs proactively, crafting a solution to meet the need, presenting it, negotiating terms and price, and ultimately that should lead to, if it's done really well, most of the time winning the sale. Note that everything is connected to value. I keep coming back to that. Value driven, is from a value mindset and value thinking, and it all starts right from the before we even step out onto the selling field, or we jump on to the virtual selling world. It's all about how we think and how our sellers think about value, how to prepare, and how to execute the delivery of that value, not just, as I said, in terms of product, service, solution, but also in terms of the way in which they engage with their buyers. So they need to craft solutions, present the value, negotiate based on value. Sellers don't do any of this in a vacuum. They work with people, and they need to be good in conversations. They need to be good in relationships and also in influence. And if you want to influence the circle just inside of it, which is the sale, you have to be good at all of these things. And they work together too. If you're great at conversations and influence, you build great relationships. If you have great relationships, people trust you and you can influence them with integrity, obviously, with things, making sure that they're in the buyer's best interest. And you can also get to them and their contacts so that you can have much more masterful sales conversations. So finally, there are three processes that sellers need to manage. They have to be able to drive the opportunity from open to close. They have to be able to grow their accounts, and they have to drive themselves to be the best they can possibly be in terms of managing their time, their motivation, and development and focus as successfully as they possibly can. So it's also worthwhile to note here that not all sellers need to be good at all things. That's impossible. If someone was excellent at all these things, standing right next to them would be a unicorn. So not everyone fills the pipeline, not everyone drives account growth, but if these things happen in a selling organization and they happen generally in a really good way, then you're going to be in really good shape. Now, I'm putting quite a bit of data on your screen at the moment. Do not get bogged down. For some of you who want the detail, don't worry, we're going to share this with you after the webinar. But here are the differences across the sales cycles. I want to share this with you to emphasize the point that it's not any one capability that distinguishes the best sellers. It's the mix of capabilities. It's the breadth and depth. I keep coming back to that. Top performers have strong capabilities across the whole of the sales cycle. So our third strategy is about leveraging sales managers. Just give me one sec. It's quite dry in here. All right, that's great. So strategies. Our third strategy is to leverage sales managers. This is a hot topic across the sales development world. It is getting more and more focused because of its importance. And we often focus on sellers. We forget sales managers, and sales managers are one of the most critical ingredients for successful and sustained results in sales development. So how do you leverage sales managers? It's the question I get in this space all the time. Sales managers are a key leverage point for most sales organizations. Managers are the ones working with sellers one-to-one, keeping them focused, advising them, checking in on them, helping them stay motivated. So a lot of that sounds, by the way, like coaching, doesn't it? Interesting. Sales is not a management role as much as it is a coaching role. Particularly, what we find is the top performing teams, the sales manager is much more seen as an effective sales coach. Anyway, let's have a look at this. So first, in terms of our managers, let me go. Yep, that's coming up. They must motivate sellers to help them find and sustain their highest level of energy and action. They must keep sellers focused on the right activities, so their daily actions build towards achieving their goals. They need to help sellers execute in the zone and avoid never-ending distractions that are around each of us all the time. Some of us might have been distracted. I'm looking at the numbers. No, actually, quite a few of you are not distracted, which is great. So hopefully you're enjoying this. But there's distractions every single minute. What's an immediate distraction right now? Your phone. You might be on your computer looking at this, but your phone might be next to you. Some of you might have picked that up. It might have flashed at you. It might have beeped at you. Someone else walking through in the area that you are right now might have distracted you. There might have been a noise of some sort. There might have been any multitude of distractions. But really good sales managers help their sellers execute in the zone and avoid those distractions that are around each of us all the time. So next, they must advise sellers in terms of win and how they are going to win their most important opportunities. And finally, they must develop sellers' skill, knowledge, and attributes in order to improve performance while reinforcing new skills and holding sellers accountable for applying them. I get one of the other questions I get asked the most is, how do we make learning stick? And my response is always the same, and that is, do you have really good sales managers? Are you developing your sales managers? And often the answer to that question will determine where the learning will stick. As a seller, what my manager finds interesting, I find fascinating. So where a sales manager's focus is where the majority of the selling team's focus is going to be, whether we like it or not. So if managers are focused on skill development, application of skill, sustainment of that skill, accountability in terms of application of that skill, often you will see significant performance improvement over a period of time when that's in play. And that's how you make learning stick. It's actually with this group here, which is our sales managers. I wouldn't say that they're the most important people in the room, but they're the most important people in the room when it comes to effective sales enablement. It's a partnership, sales enablement, sales management, and the sellers. And then also, if you really want to go to the next level, if you have your executives keenly interested, checking in, holding the sales managers accountable for doing these things, it has a cascading effect of focus and accountability that drives application of learning and the performance improvements that you enjoy. So in addition to those items, we need to look at the several management roles that our sales managers must play, and that's the bottom half of our model here. They must manage the performance of their team, including accelerating the team's performance and dealing with underperformance. They must make reliable forecasts and manage pipeline activity. They've got to lead exceptional team meetings, an appropriate number and type of meetings throughout the week, throughout the month, throughout the quarter. They need to excel at territory planning. And finally, they need to recruit, onboard, and upgrade talent. So if there's any sales managers on this call, and people ask you, well, what do you actually do? Take a photo of what's on screen at the moment and say, here's my role. And I have to be great at all of these things. And it's really challenging. And I never have the time to do it all. And it's really, it is a tough role, but it's mapped out here. And the first thing to do in terms of any development and any improvement is knowing. We know what we've got on the screen there are the areas that we need to focus on, and we need to focus on developing to become really good at over time as a sales leader. Sellers are 63% more likely to become top performers when three factors fall into place. Excuse me. Firstly, we know that sellers need the skills and skills across capabilities to be top performers. So they need effective training, but that's not all. The odds of top performers raise significantly when you layer on effective managers and regular coaching. And one could argue that if your sales training includes your sales managers, they will become more effective managers and provide more consistent and effective coaching. So it really is a win-win-win. The combination of all three is exceptionally powerful. It's 63% more likely in terms of when it comes to top performance, and that's massive. It shows the importance of getting all of these three areas right inside your organization. But we constantly see coaching as the failure point, and I touched on that at the beginning in terms of when you look at if you look at the activities and the attributes of top performing teams in sales, one of the things I see is, as I said, really good sales leaders see themselves as the coach on the team. They're on the sideline, they're not on the field, and they're looking at not just supporting top performers, identifying top performers. They're interested in developing top performers. And so our top performing sales organizations that we work with often don't have the recruiting challenges. And some of you will say, well, Andy, that's because they've got a brand, or that's because they're well known. Top performing sales organizations have nothing to do with big brands, have nothing to do with, sure, some of them are, but most of them are not. Some of these top performing selling organizations that we benchmark, you would have never heard of. So it's got nothing to do with their brand attracts great talent, or they pay more than what happens in the market. No, they have a really good way of identifying sales talent that they can develop, and they have a really good ecosystem that focuses on continual and sustained development. And obviously that's a key retention point. When sellers love the environment and they constantly feel progress, not just target achievement, but they feel a sense of progress in their development as an individual, they often tend to stay a lot longer and perform much better inside those selling organizations. So I've lost count the number of times that people tell me, my people are all capable. They've been doing these roles for years. They know where to find me if I need help. I don't need to schedule regular coaching sessions with them. And besides, I'm too busy with other priorities. That's probably the most common thing that I hear. And I don't have time to have my calendar filled up with unnecessary coaching sessions. Let's have a look at the data. Let's have a look at the data. What does the data say about that? If that is our attitude in terms of that, if that is how we think, the top performers are 51% more likely to receive a regular schedule of coaching from their sales leaders. This is significant finding, validates what we've been working with on managers for years to implement a regular rhythm of predetermined and focused coaching interactions, both one-to-one as a team. The question I get then is, well, what does that look like? If I'm open to coaching, if I should be thinking about coaching, if I'm in sales enablement, I want to inspire and I want to enable our sales leaders to coach more, what does that look like? So this is what a coaching rhythm looks like. And in order to set that rhythm, you need to break down the necessary tasks and the time that they'll take. So there's quick check-ins, accountability checks, deal reviews, sales meetings, pipeline reviews, upskilling, team building. What I will say to you is, obviously you've got to take the menu and develop your own way of building that and executing on that. Don't blend them. is the key thing. Reduce time, don't blend would be the insight I can give you from working in this space for a very long time. You need to have reasons for these check-ins, for these coaching, for these. They need to be topic specific. If you've got 15 minutes and you execute a really good coaching dialogue and you get advancement on that topic area in 10 minutes, finish the meeting early. We don't need to take all of the time available to us, but we do need to segment it. Really important that we segment effectively. And it's, I cannot overstate the importance of setting a regular rhythm with your sales team and sticking to it. For me, A, that's one of the hardest things to do, but B, it has outsized returns in terms of what you're going to get from it. Everyone will know what's expected of them. And when what's expected will be inspected, it will be coached, it will be supported. You might get a few grumbles at the beginning, but the level of accountability that will begin to become, essentially automated by way of this this rhythm will put you in good stead in terms of the development opportunities, the skill development opportunities, the team development opportunities as a byproduct of that rhythm. So it's extremely important. When we combine it with two other factors, it becomes even more potent. So let's have a look at some of those. So first of all, setting the table for sales managers' success. Let's unpack just a couple of these. We would strongly recommend that if you're developing your sellers, that you should attend the training as well. Remember, what my manager focuses on, I find they find interesting, I find fascinating. Where the sales manager's focus is, the seller's focus is going to be very close behind. So if you are showing, or your sales leaders are showing a keen interest in the seller's development, it will have a profound impact, not just on your sellers, but also on your sales managers in terms of what they can learn as well. We need to focus on developing our managers, our sales managers, and our sellers, not just our sellers. Critical, important point. We see, once again, outsized returns, but the journey towards realizing becoming a top performing selling organization has a lot to do with the collective development, not just the siloed development of your sellers. We need to drive accountability, and accountability is not a bad word. Discipline's not a bad word. We sometimes make them a bad word. Why? They're boring. They're repetitive. You know what? As human beings, we need some of that to be effective and successful and top performers in our field. So accountability is a good word, and regular accountability being driven through managers is critically important. I think I don't need to overemphasize focusing and seeing your role or your sales manager's role more and more as an effective high performance coach, critically important. We want to be providing coaching guides to support and enable our sales managers to become great coaches. And we want to drive productivity through managers. So I won't canvas all of the things that are on there at the moment. You can see we're talking about AI. I'm a massive fan of simulated learning, by the way. Simulated learning, and by the way, some of you say, well, isn't that just a role play? Well, it's actually not. I use the word simulation because if you can simulate environments as close to the buyer-seller interaction, and you can do it in a safe environment, and you hold the seller accountable for preparing and executing conversations just like they would have with the buyer in as close to real life scenario as possible, the power and the powerful outputs that you get from those observations to be able to more effectively coach is profound. Plus, you can execute and build simulated learning in your environment much easier and quicker than for a lot of you going in field and doing observations. Because if your sellers are geographically dispersed, not just the cost, but the time just to get out and do a ride along, or in some cases to sit on a Zoom calls or Teams meetings, whatever you want to call them, can be time prohibitive in terms of being able to do that. Simulated learning is something from a sales enablement and sales leader perspective, I would strongly encourage you to look into. There are a lot of the technology is also taking over in that space. A lot of simulated learnings, but we do a huge volume of simulations for our clients, and it has profound impact in terms of the development for sellers and sales managers. So the 3 areas of focus for sales enablement in terms of overcoming our challenges. We've talked about improving sales productivity. We've talked about developing not single-skilled, but multi-skilled sellers. And we need to double down, if we haven't already done so, and focus on leveraging our sales managers. So now imagine if you do these 3 things, what does your world look like? So you now, if you do that effectively, you've eliminated your need to recruit and hire top talent, because your team is more productive and you're getting more done with less. You're developing your own top performers, and you're retaining top talent that wants growth and development opportunities. You've overcome the other top challenges because you have an ongoing development plan. By the way, this is hugely attractive. Sellers tell us all the time, you know what? My product and service offering may not be as better, it might not be market leading. You know what? The pay I get is probably not top of the market, but it's competitive. But a lot of the reason I stay is because I'm constantly challenged. I'm constantly developed, and I really enjoy that environment. I really enjoy that culture. And even things aren't friendly, even if things aren't the most happy, if a seller, and in a lot of cases, a sales leader, are feeling a sense of progression in their role, they're much more likely to stay versus what you pay them versus other factors that you have to offer. That sense of progress can only come from the way in which you develop and create an ecosystem of seller and sales leader development within inside your organization. Do all that, you're going to be achieving your priorities much more and much more often. So we've looked at the top 5 challenges. We've also looked at the top 5 priorities. I'd really like to hear from you right now. Which of the following are high priorities for your organization? Which of these are high priorities for your organization? Let's see if we can blow our capture rate in terms of share on this poll out of the ballpark for this last poll. So is it the ability to create, improve the ability to create value, improve productivity, increase business, improve customer retention, building pipeline, improving sales opportunities, sellers' ability to inspire with new ideas, retaining top sales talent? Which of the following are the highest priorities for your organization? We are going to offer another 15 seconds to, there's quite a few of those things on the poll. So scroll down and make sure we can get a really good pulse from everyone on here, what the highest priorities for our organization is. We, once again, have got healthy response rates here. This is fantastic. People are staying to the end. They're keenly inputting, which is always good signs when we have an engaged audience, that we may have had a value for value exchange here today. And I hope you've enjoyed it and got value in helping overcome those problem areas. All right, let's share the results on that. Let's see what we've got. The scrolling ones are always the hardest ones to tell. Let me have a look here. 56% say building a robust pipeline is one of the highest priorities of the organization. So building a robust pipeline from this cohort of your peers on our webinar today is the number one when it comes to highest priorities of the selling organization. And then there is a tie for number 2, improving the productivities of sellers and our sales teams and improving the ability to create value. Thank you for your honesty. That last one, improving the ability to create value. Wow. The V word is the most used word in our organization. It's the most commonly used word in needs discovery when we go and talk to buyers who may be seeking to engage us. And often it's the void or lack of value that's present in the sales conversations, in the selling presentations, in the RFP responses, and it is a really big challenge to overcome. So the ability to create value is a key one. And we have those other two, building a robust pipeline and improving productivity. Thank you very much for that. We will take that off. So guess what? We can help you. And I'd have a pretty upset marketing team, a couple of which are on our webinar here today, if I didn't let you know that we can help you. In fact, I'm from the practitioner side of the business, and I have the privilege of leading all of our consultants, coaches, trainers across the globe in order to be able to help overcome these challenges each and every day. In fact, that's all I do. That's the only space I function in is helping overcome these challenges. So I'm very excited to let you know about a new offering, particularly when it comes to sustainment and to not just be helping or supporting our clients on just single skill training, because too many organizations approach training with a short-term perspective. They focus on a program to develop a specific skill. They see short-term improvements in results and return on investment, and they go, wow, what a success. That's not a success for me. In fact, that's what we actively seek to avoid. And I work with our sellers to make sure that we're not just coming in to do that, because as we all know, it's a flash in the pan. It's great. Everyone feels great. We can see a result and then things drop off. So it's all about not just focusing on one type of skill development with our sellers and sales leaders and driving long-term change that is actually going to help you achieve, your organization achieve their priorities, their results. And so, as I said earlier today, the priorities today have shifted very little since when we first conducted that research 4 years ago. So we're committed at Rain Group to help organizations overcome these challenges. And as an industry, we need to move beyond the one skill at a time training. So we have, I guess, created a solution to that called Rain Group Total Access. And it's our intention through that to change how sales leaders approach seller and sales manager development, how they buy sales training, and how they embed a sales method into their organization. It's our goal to make it easy for you to do all these things across your sales organization with an affordable per person subscription to our complete suite of training products. What does that look like? So it's about having complete access to everything that we have built in terms of our IP, that, as you know, is built from research that is then taken the research in terms of top performance, codified that into practical ways in which we can bring that to life in our organization. And then we've modularized it. So we have 77 modules that you can build any type of custom curricula that you could possibly imagine, so that you can address a whole variety of skill gaps now or in a sustained fashion over time, depending on what your take is. There's 4 delivery modalities. So online, there is self-paced learning. There is virtual instructor-led. There is face-to-face instructor-led. There's also hybrid. We're seeing a lot of organizations do a mix of both virtual and face-to-face. We're also seeing organizations now do a mixture of self-study and instructor-led training, both face-to-face and virtual. Why? Because it suits their sellers' way of digesting information and then applying that in the way in which they best see. It is completely customizable, which is what we love. Why? Because not every selling organization is the same. So you can't take the same development approach to every organization. So our product, service, offering, solution needed to be able to be completely tailored to the needs of our customers. And that's what value is for them. We have 90-day sales achievement challenges and hundreds of micro videos to enable micro learning. Why? Because adults told us that's how they want to consume information. They want to have access to information and learning on the fly in bite-sized chunks, and be able to have it real time and accessing where they want to learn and when they want to learn. Very focused on training implementation. We have full train the trainer certification. And everything is documented to enable your facilitators, if you're doing it in-house, to be able to be up to speed very quickly in terms of deployment of this. Everything is geared towards results. My role, my team globally is called Client Results Team. Why? Because that's our focus. Each day we wake up and we are driven towards focusing on achieving the results of our client. Why? Because why else should anyone exist? We are in business in order to help others achieve their results that they desire by engaging us. So we can help we have lots and lots of awards to say that we've done this, we've got results, we've helped a lot of organizations get what they seek in terms of developing their sellers, their sales leaders, and their selling organization to become top performers in their space. And we do that with the best IP education system and focus on results. I hope you have enjoyed our time together. Katie, I'm going to ask you to come back in. We have time for maybe one or two questions, and then we will close up. For those of you who may be dropping off now, I am constantly able to engage with you and help solve your problems at an individual level in terms of sales development, not any other problems, just sales development. So please feel free to reach out directly to me on LinkedIn, and we can talk there. Katie, over to you.
All right. Our first question today, is there an activity that you can recommend to find your team members' greatest impact activities?
So I think the question that we need to ask is by doing what is going to help me achieve outsized returns in terms of my sales results. And so it's really asking the right questions that will help identify your greatest impact activities. If we did if we did X, it would achieve outsized return for our selling organization. Get sales leaders in a room, get them on a Zoom, ask them that question, capture the ideas, brainstorm, agree. It may be different for different teams based on product, service offerings, where they're at, where they're performing, whatever. But greatest impact activities of a day for some sellers are doing their training actions, their post-training actions. For some of it, it's prospecting. Our pipeline is weak. We need to generate new opportunities. We need to prospect every single day. Greatest impact activity is to generate 1 new meeting or 10 new meetings. For some of us, it is progressing large, complex sales opportunities. And so I need to focus on this opportunity, and I need to figure out what's an activity today that's going to advance that large sales opportunity towards win by doing it. So yeah, hopefully that's helped. Katie?
What are the top 3 areas a manager should coach his sellers for highest impact?
I think productivity is probably up there for me. Where they are spending their time would be the key area I would focus on. If you have not done that as a sales leader, you are going to be surprised. Now, you're going to have the range across your team of top performers, the rest, and your underperformers. But often where they're spending their time and the activities that they're focused on and the quality of those activities would be where I would inspect. Get them to not tell you what they do. Get them to show you what they do. Give them a scenario that's close to their world and say, we're walking in, first discovery meeting with X. You've had very little time to prep. Tell me how you would execute that meeting. What questions are you going to ask, or what questions would you ask? And let's simulate that conversation right now. Like, get them to show you what they're doing. Get them to demonstrate their critical thinking or lack thereof in terms of how they approach the crafting of solutions. Ask them about value for the customer. The number one question I ask when someone comes out of a needs discovery is, tell me what does success look like for them? Tell me what their future state looks like once they've solved the problem or achieved the objective that they're in market for at the moment. So it's about questions. And as I said, I would start in productivity, where they're spending their time. Second of all, what they're spending their time on. Third of all, what's the quality of activity in terms of that, where they're spending their time. Last one, Katie.
All right, last one. All organizations are structured differently sales-wise. How do you cater for this in your process and in getting the right messages across in the best way?
Yeah, great question. We have, I don't want to give away too much here. We have an ingrained part of our process which is essentially as practitioners, not as sellers, as practitioners. Once we've been engaged, we go in and study our client's organization before we show up and do anything. So we do a range of various interviews, surveys. We do our own practitioner discovery to understand the sales process, the selling movements, what your customers think and how they think and approach buying, what's working, what's not, and making sure that what we've uncovered in the sales process is actually in detail what's going on inside your organization, so that we're really, we're very well contextualized when we come in to understand our client's organization before we even open our mouth in terms of supporting them in terms of sales improvement efforts. I'm going to close up. I know that quite a few people are still with us, but as I said, if you've got further questions, please reach out on LinkedIn and we will do our best to help you. Thank you, Katie.
Thank you for your insight, Andy. Just as a reminder, we have recorded this event and you'll receive an email by the end of this week with links to watch the recording and download a PDF of your slides. Thank you everyone for joining us today and have a great rest of the day.
Thanks, everyone.